Hello, everybody. This is Mike History 2, and I will be continuing my series on the top 10 worst people in history. So, as number 3, we have Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan was born around 1162 in Delun Boldog, now in Mongolia, as Temujin, to Yesugei, a chief, and his wife Holan. At 9 years old, Yesugei arranged a marriage for him and sent him to his future wife, Borte's family. He'd stay there until he was 12, when he would be old enough to get married. However, when Yesugei was returning home, he got poisoned by Tatars, who were enemies of the Mongols. When Temujin learned about this, he returned home to succeed his father as a chief, but his tribe rejected and abandoned him. For the next several years, the family lived in poverty, barely surviving. Temujin's older half-brother, Begter, began to exercise power as the oldest man in the family, and would eventually have the right to claim Holan, who was not his mother, as his wife. Temujin's resentment erupted during one hunting excursion when he and his brother Kasar killed Bektar. In a raid around 1177, Temujin was captured by his father's former allies, the Taichi Ud, and enslaved, reportedly with a keng. With the help of a sympathetic guard, he escaped from the Gur at night by hiding in a riverbed. Soon, Jilme and Borchu joined forces with him. They and the guard's son, Chilaun, eventually became generals of Temujin. As previously arranged by his father, Temujin married Borte when he was around 16 in order to cement alliances between their two tribes. Soon after the marriage, Borte was kidnapped by the Merkits and reportedly given away as a wife. Temujin rescued her with the help of his friend and future rival Jamuka and his protector Togrul of the Kerate tribe. She gave birth to a son, Jochi, 9 months later, with no being sure who his father was. Despite speculation over Jochi, Borte would become Temujin's only empress, though he did follow tradition by taking several lesser wives. Borte had 3 more sons, Chagatai, Ogedei, and Tului. Temujin later took about 500 secondary wives and consorts, but Borte continued to be his life companion. Man, this guy would make Muhammad jealous. He had many other children with those other wives, but they were excluded from succession, only Borte's sons being considered to be his heirs. However, a Tatar woman named Yisui, taken as a wife when her people were conquered by the Mongols, eventually came to be given almost as much prominence as Borte, despite originally being only one of his minor wives. Temujin began his rise to power by offering himself as an ally to his father's blood brother, Togrul, who was chief of the Karaites. This relationship was first reinforced when Borte was captured by the Merkits. Temujin turned to Togrul for support, and Togrul offered 20,000 of his Karaite warriors, suggesting that Temujin involve his childhood friend Jamuka, who had himself become chief of his own tribe, the Jadaran. Although the campaign recaptured Borte and utterly defeated the Merkits, it also paved the way for the split between Temujin and Jamuka. As Jamuka and Temujin drifted apart in their friendship, each began consolidating power, and they became rivals. Jamuka supported the traditional Mongolian aristocracy, while Temujin followed a meritocratic method and attracted more followers. In 1186, Temujin was elected chief of the Mongols. Threatened by this rise, Jamuka attacked Temujin in 1187 with an army of 30,000 troops. Temujin gathered his followers to defend against the attack, but was decisively beaten in the Battle of Dalan Belzut. However, Jamuka horrified and alienated potential followers by boiling 70 captives alive in cauldrons. Togrul, as Temujin's patron, was exiled to Karakitai. Around the year 1197, the Jin Empire attacked against their formal vassal, the Tatars, with help from the Karaites and the Mongols. Temujin commanded part of this attack, and after victory he and Togrul were restored by the Jin Empire to positions of power. In his rule and his conquest of rival tribes, Temujin broke with Mongol tradition in a few crucial ways. He delegated authority based on merit and loyalty rather than family ties. As an incentive for absolute obedience and the Yasa code of law, Temujin promised civilians and soldiers wealth from future war spoils. When he defeated rival tribes, he did not drive away their soldiers and abandon their civilians. Instead, he took the conquered tribe under his protection and integrated its members into his own tribe. He would even have his mother adopt orphans from the conquered tribe, bringing them into his family. These political innovations inspired great loyalty among the conquered people, making Temujin stronger with each victory. Sengum, son of Togrul, was jealous of Temujin's growing power and friendship with his father. He planned to assassinate Temujin. Although Togrul was saved on multiple occasions by Temujin, he gave in to his son and became uncooperative with Temujin. Temujin learned of Sengum's intentions and eventually defeated him and his loyalists. One of the later problems between Temujin and Toghrul was Toghrul's refusal to give his daughter in marriage to Jochi. This was disrespectful and led to a war. While that escalated quickly, Toghrul allied with Jamukha, who had already opposed Temujin's forces. However, the dispute between Toghrul and Jamukha, plus the desertion of a number of their allies to Temujin, led to Toghrul's defeat. However, Jamukha escaped during the conflict. The next direct threat to Temujin was the Naimans, with whom Jamukha and his followers took refuge. The Naimans didn't surrender, although many of them sided with Temujin. Well, seems like Italians. In 1201, Jamukha was elected Gur Khan, universal ruler, a title used by the rulers of Karakitai. Jamukha's decision to use this title was the last straw for Temujin, and Jamukha formed a coalition of tribes to oppose him. Before the conflict, several generals abandoned Jamukha, including Subutai, Jalmai's well-known younger brother. After several battles, Jamukha was turned over to Temujin by his own men in 1206. Temujin again offered his friendship to Jamukha. Temujin had killed the men who had betrayed Jamukha, saying that he did not want disloyal men in his army. Jamukha refused the offer, saying that there can only be one sun in the sky, and he asked for a noble death. The custom was to die without spilling blood, specifically by having one's back broken. Honestly, getting stabbed or beheaded would be nicer. But anyways, Jamukha requested this form of death, although he was known to have boiled his opponent's generals alive. The part of the Merkit clan that sided with the Naimans were defeated by Subutai, who was by then a member of Temujin's personal guard, and later became one of his most successful commanders. The Naimans' defeat left Temujin as the only ruler of the Mongol steppe. All the prominent confederations had fallen or united under his Mongol confederation. As a result, by 1206, Temujin had managed to unite or conquer the Merkits, Naimans, Mongols, Karaites, Tatars, Uyghurs, and other disparate smaller tribes under his rule. This was a monumental accomplishment. At a council of Mongol chiefs, Temujin was acknowledged as the first Mongol Khan and took the new title Genghis Khan, therefore creating the Mongol Khanate. The new Mongol Khanate immediately began expanding east. First, Genghis Khan prepared for war with Western Xia. He correctly believed that the more powerful young ruler of the Jin Empire would not come help Western Xia. When Western Xia requested help from the Jin Empire, they were refused. Despite initial difficulties in capturing its well-defended cities, Genghis Khan managed to force Western Xia to become a vassal of the Mongol Khanate. In 1211, after the conquest of Western Xia, Genghis Khan planned again to conquer the Jin Empire. Wanyan Chuchin, the commander of the Jin army, made a mistake in not attacking the Mongol Khanate at the first opportunity. Instead, he sent a messenger, Ming-An, to the Mongols, who defected and told the Mongols that the Jin army was waiting at the other side of the pass. This engagement fought at Yehuling. The Mongols massacred hundreds of thousands of Jin troops. In 1215, Genghis besieged, captured, and sacked the Jin capital of Songdu, modern-day Beijing. This forced the Jin Emperor Xuanzong to move his capital south to Kaifeng, abandoning the northern half of his empire to the Mongol Khanate. Kuchlug, the deposed chief of the Naiman Confederation that Genghis Khan conquered, fled west and usurped Karakitai. Genghis Khan decided to conquer Karakitai and defeat Kuchlug, possibly to take him out of power. By this time, the Mongol army was exhausted from 10 years of continuous campaigning in China against Western Xia and the Jin Empire. Therefore, Genghis sent only 20,000 soldiers against Kuchlug under his younger general Jib. With such a small force, the invading Mongols were forced to change strategies and resort to inciting internal revolt among Kuchlug's supporters, leaving Karakitai more vulnerable to Mongol conquest. As a result, Kuchlug's army was defeated west of Kashgar. Kuchlug fled again, but was soon hunted down by Jib's army and executed. By 1218, as a result of the conquest of Karakitai, the Mongol Khanate and its control extended as far west as Lake Balkhash, which bordered the Khwarezmian Sultanate. The Khwarezmian Sultanate was governed by Muhammad II. Wow, what an original name. Genghis Khan saw the potential advantage in the Khwarezmian Sultanate as a trading partner using the Silk Road, and he initially sent a 500-man caravan to establish official trade ties with the empire. However, Inalchuk, the governor of the Khwarezmian city of Otrar, attacked the caravan, claiming that the caravan contained spies and therefore was a conspiracy against the Khwarezmian Sultanate. The situation became further complicated because the governor later refused to make repayments for the looting of the caravans and hand over the perpetrators. Genghis Khan then sent a second group of 3 ambassadors to meet the Sultan himself, instead of the governor Inalchuk. The Sultan had all the men shaved and one of them beheaded, and sent his head back with two remaining ambassadors. Outraged, Genghis Khan planned one of his largest invasion campaigns by organizing together around 100,000 soldiers, his most capable generals and some of his sons. He left a commander and a number of troops in China and then went out to the Khwarezmian Sultanate. The Mongol army crossed the Tian Shan mountains by entering the area controlled by the Khwarezmian Sultanate. After getting intelligence, Genghis Khan carefully prepared his army, which was divided into three groups. His son Jochi led the first division into the northeast of the Khwarezmian Sultanate. The second division under Jibe marched secretly to the southeast part of the Khwarezmian Sultanate to form, with the first division, a pincer attack on Samarkand. The third division under Genghis Khan and Tolui marched to the northwest and attacked the Khwarezmian Sultanate from that direction. The Khwarezmian army was split by feuds and by the Sultan's decision to divide his army into small groups concentrated in various cities. His fragmentation was decisive in the Khwarezmian Sultanate's defeats, as it allowed the Mongols, although exhausted from the long journey, to immediately set about defeating small fractions of the Khwarezmian forces instead of facing a unified defense. The Mongol army quickly seized the town of Otrar. Genghis Khan ordered the entire massacre of many of the civilians, enslaved the rest of the population, and executed Inalchuk by pouring melted silver into his ears and eyes as retribution for his actions. Near the end of the battle, the Sultan fled rather than surrender. Genghis Khan ordered Subutai and Jebe to hunt him down, giving them 20,000 men and 2 years to do this. However, the Sultan died under mysterious circumstances on a small island within his sultanate. The Mongols' Khanate's conquest, even by its own standards, was brutal. After the capital Samarkand fell, the capital was moved to Bukhara, while Genghis Khan ordered two of his generals and their forces to completely destroy what remained of the Khwarezmian Sultanate, including not only royal buildings but entire towns, populations, and even farmland. The Mongols attacked Samarkand using captured enemies as human shields. After several days, only a few remaining soldiers, loyal supporters of the Sultan, held out in the citadel. After the citadel fell, Genghis Khan supposedly betrayed his surrender terms and executed every soldier that had taken arms against him at Samarkand. The people of Samarkand were ordered to evacuate and assemble in a plain outside the city, where they were killed in pyramids of severed heads raised as a symbol of victory. The city of Bukhara was not heavily fortified, so city leaders opened the gates to the Mongols. Although a unit of defenders held the city citadel for another 12 days. Survivors from the citadel, well, I think you can guess, were executed, while artisans and craftsmen were sent back to the Mongol Khanate. Young men who had not fought were drafted into the Mongol army, and the rest of the population was enslaved. As the Mongol soldiers looted the city, a fire broke out, razing and burning most of the city to the ground. Meanwhile, the wealthy trading city of Urgench was still in the hands of Khwarezmian forces. The assault on Urgench proved to be the most difficult battle of the Mongol invasion. The city fell only after the defenders put up a stout defense, fighting block for block. Mongol casualties were higher than normal, due to the difficulty of adapting Mongol tactics to city fighting. As usual, the artisans were sent back to the Mongol Khanate. Young women and children were given to the Mongol soldiers as slaves, and the rest of the population was massacred. In total, 1.2 million people were massacred. The sacking of Urgench is considered one of the bloodiest massacres in all of human history. After the defeat of the Khwarezmian Sultanate in 1220, Genghis Khan gathered his forces in Persia and Armenia to return to the Mongolian steppes. Under the suggestion of Subutai, the Mongol army was split into two forces. Genghis Khan led the main army in a raid through Afghanistan and northern India toward Mongolia, while another 20,000 men marched through the Caucasus and into Russia under generals Jibe and Subutai. They pushed deep into Armenia and Azerbaijan. The Mongols defeated Georgia, sacked the Genoese trade fortress of Kaffa in Crimea, and overwintered near the Black Sea. Heading home, Subutai's forces attacked the allied forces of the Cuman Kipchaks, and the poorly coordinated 80,000 Kievan Rus troops led by Mstislav the Bold of Halych and Mstislav III of Kiev, who went out to stop the Mongol Khanate's actions in the area. Subutai sent emissaries to the Slavic princes calling for a separate peace. The emissaries were executed. At the Battle of Kalka River in 1223, Subutai's forces defeated the larger Kievan force. The Russian princes then sued for peace. However, Subutai, as you can guess, was in no mood to pardon the princes, and as was customary in Mongol society for nobility, the Russian princes were given a bloodless death. Subutai had a large wooden platform constructed on which he ate his meals along with other generals. 6 Russian princes, including Mstislav III of Kiev, were put under this platform and crushed to death. The Mongols learned from the captives of the abundant green pastures beyond the Bulgar territory, allowing for the planning for the conquest of Hungary and Europe. Genghis Khan recalled Subutai back to Mongolia soon afterwards, and Jibbe died on the road back to Samarkand. In 1225, both divisions returned to Mongolia. These invasions added Transoxiana and Persia to an already formidable Khanate, while destroying any resistance along the way. The vassal emperor of Western Xia had earlier refused to take part in the Mongol war against the Khwarezmian Sultanate. Western Xia and the defeated Jin Empire formed a coalition to resist the Mongol Khanate. Clearly, they learned nothing from before. And they were counting on the campaign against the Khwarezmian Sultanate to distract the Mongol Khanate from responding effectively. In 1226, immediately after returning from the west, Genghis Khan began an attack on Western Xia. His armies quickly took Heisui, Ganchu, and Sultu, and in the autumn he took Xilyangfu. One of the Western Xia generals challenged the Mongols to a battle near the Helan Mountains, but was defeated in November. Genghis laid siege to the Western Xia city Lingchu and crossed the Yellow River, defeating the Western Xia reinforcements. In 1227, Genghis Khan's army attacked and destroyed the Western Xia capital of Ningxia and continued to advance, seizing Lintiaofu, Xining province, Xindufu, and Desun province in quick succession in the spring. At Deschon, the Western Xia general Ma Jianlong put up a fierce resistance for several days and personally led charges against the invaders outside the city gate. Ma Jianlong later died from wounds received from arrows in battle. Genghis Khan, after conquering Deschun, went to Liupanshan to escape the severe summer. The new Western Xia emperor quickly surrendered to the Mongols, and the rest of the Western Xia officially surrendered soon after. However, not happy with their betrayal and resistance, Genghis Khan ordered the entire imperial family to be executed. Genghis Khan died in August 1227 during the fall of Yinchuan, which is the capital of Western Xia. The exact cause of his death is a mystery and is variously attributed to being killed in action against the Western Xia, illness, falling from his horse, or wounds sustained in hunting or battle. In total, Genghis Khan and his army brutally massacred 40 million people. And let that sink in. This was before guns even existed. In fact, he was so brutal that the entire population of the whole planet decreased. And I think this is pretty obvious to you why Genghis Khan is on this list. Anyways, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you later.